Ain't no half step on Marcus J. Live from the Den, Legacy Internet Radio. Welcome back to the show. Welcome back to Facebook Live. Welcome back to TuneIn and legacyinternetradio.com. You're listening to the flagship show, Legacy Internet Radio. We're talking about the events over the weekend in Charlottesville, Virginia, with the alt-right KKK neo-Nazi rally resulting in the deaths of the woman that was killed when the car was rammed into her in the crowd. As well as the two officers, state troopers, that were killed in the plane crash or the helicopter crash, rather, that was out there patrolling. Our thoughts go out to those families. Ain't no half step, Marcus J. Live from the Den, Legacy Internet Radio. Be a part of tonight's discussion by calling us 804-402-2893. That is the phone number to dial to be a part of tonight's discussion. Now, I had mentioned earlier about who was the United States founded for, and you would be surprised to know that the United States was founded for the 1% in this country. When you look at who the founders were, if you look at who signed the Constitution, the founders and the signers of the Constitution were the elite. They had come, of course, from the UK, from England, to this country, and they were the rich people. They were the 1% at the time. And when they signed the Constitution, when they filled it out, if you study it, if you really, really look at it, it was written out to protect their money and protect their land and protect their property. White men, white rich men, 1%, did not include women. You guys were just as black as we were, white women. Let me not say it that way. You were just as valued as we were. But at least you got to be a whole human, because we were 3/5 of a human. Now, here's the science on why that was done. They figured out that most of the people, kind of like how now, are residing in the North. That's where most of the population is. Whereas the South needed to have delegation. They needed to have people that were a part of the Electoral College. And the way they did that was they had to look and see everybody that they had. They didn't have enough people to have representation. So they had this idea of, well, let's include the coloreds. But if we include the coloreds, then we have to give them rights. So what they did was they made them 3/5. So you don't have full human rights. You're not a full human, but you do get to help us in our delegation in Washington, or Philadelphia at the time, because that's where the original capital was. So that's a little bit of history. When you look at 1776, when the Constitution was set up, and when the country was set up, the 1% signed it. And if you look at 2017, who's running the country right now? The 1%. You still got poor people fighting over which rich people are going to represent them. If you really, really think about that, then you realize how absolutely asinine that is. Absolutely asinine. We'll talk more about that when we get to Colin Kaepernick and how this kind of plays into what his protest is in the next segment. But you're listening to the flagship show of Legacy Internet Radio, Ain't No Half Stepping with Marcus J, 804-402-2893. Tamika, I want you to talk to us a little bit about President Donald Trump's response. What's your thoughts on what he said over the weekend? I don't know if you've heard his response or the updated response today, but just give me something on Donald Trump.
Well, his lack of response or delayed response to me is a forced response. He is only responding because everybody, including a lot of his own political party on Capitol Hill, is asking where his response is. Why don't you denunciate these people? And it's interesting because I listened to some clips from when he was on the trail, and the one thing he said was, if you can't call our enemy by name, you have no business in this office. That struck me as interesting because he refused to call the enemy by name in any of his statements. I thought it was interesting that Jeff Sessions, and we all know his history, came out and denounced everything long before the president did. His wife spoke before he did.
It's because he don't want to upset the homies.
Right.
I mean, real talk.
That's
He
what
he
it
don't
is.
want to upset the homies.
It's true. Now I have not heard his updated response, but to
I mean,
me,
he-
it's nothing. What's the point at this
Well,
point?
the updated response today, he said the things or some of the things that he should have said on Saturday. But here's the deal: he started off talking about the economy, which basically tells me that was what was important to him at the time, and it was later on reported that when they tried to dissuade him from even mentioning the economy and just deal directly with this because this is what the people need to hear from you, he insisted on opening up his statement talking about the economy before he got to discussing the incident in Charlottesville. And I mean, he used some of the words that you looked to, he called them out, and he denounced them, and he mentioned them by name, white supremacists, KKK. I mean, he said those things that he should have basically said on Saturday.
Yeah.
On Saturday. So, what's your thoughts, Coach? I'm guessing you know. Actually, before you give me your thoughts, peace to our brother, Mr. 3375. The utility play is on daddy duty tonight, so that's why he's not with us tonight. So, peace to him. Dee says, yes, he only responded after seeing negative press about him and listening to his speech. You could tell those weren't his words. Right. Before Coach says anything, I'll address that, Dee. The reality is, I know from doing radio for the last 6 years that when you got something to say that you're passionate about, you don't need a script for it. You just go in there and you start talking. But if you saw him on Saturday, I heard it audio today. I didn't see it, but I heard it. And there was no emotion in it. It was just him reading the words. And on Saturday, I actually saw him looking down at the paper. So if you have to be coached on how to denounce the KKK, it might be because them's your peoples. Right. What you got, Coach?
And we know, like you were saying, we know the reason why he didn't say that, because those are the people that he galvanized. When we hear the term "Make America Great Again," what does that come from? And that's what his play on words during this 2-year campaign trail that he did. That's what they did. That was their mantra. He's giving them a voice. And like we said, the whole thing about, he has a daughter. I don't know how old Ivanka is. She's like 30 something.
She's in her early 30s.
Early 30s. And a 32-year-old woman got killed. There's no emotion with that, because even in situations like that, you can not internalize, but more so you can have empathy in a situation of that nature. So of course, and then like you're saying, it's being contrived, but it's funny. The tweets, there was no tweets, and like little stuff that angered him. Like he'll be adamant about, well, there was more people at my inauguration than Barack Obama's. He's adamant about that. But then if somebody, a 32-year-old woman who was fighting for the good of people, get killed in a protest with a car, get hit by a car, come on now. But you can talk about and adamant about silly stuff.
You up in the middle of the night tweeting. You fighting with CBS for
fake news,
for Colbert, and
right.
you got something to say about everybody else, but you ain't got nothing to say about this. Laurel says he has no heart and it's all about him. Tony, jump in here.
So I kind of liken it to a rap battle, and I think it was the battle between Drake and Meek Mill, where Drake was all right, Meek was trash. But then Meek was like, no, I got another one. Y'all listen to this one. This one is better. You already lost. It goes down in history as you lost the battle to Drake forever. That's kind of how this situation is. Right. You should have responded as a normal human being. Put the presidency aside. As a normal human being with functioning emotions, you should have responded a certain way. But you didn't. Until people were like, what are you doing? Like that's in your words, that's very, very bad. You can't do that.
It was hugely bad. It was hugely bad.
Yeah, the New York
huge. It was huge. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, that's it. He's disgusting to me.
One thing that I don't want to do, I'll temper my comment. I'll temper my comment until we can get the caller in. Caller, what's your name? What you want to rap about?
What's going on, Marcus Johnson? It's Terry Hunt. What's going on with you, bro?
What's happening? Thanks for shouting out the government, brother. Appreciate that.
Definitely.
What's up, man?
Certainly a topic I wanted to touch base with you guys on. I think that we've been a hit and miss on a couple of things. This is something that I think that hits sincerely to the heart with a lot of us, especially considering the injustices that we've experienced over the course of the last years. With regards to what took place in Charlottesville this weekend, I think was a gross misjustice and misunderstanding, I guess, direction of the insensitivity that takes place when we have these type of events that we experience in the country. And unfortunately, throughout the course of history, at least the presidents that we've had have at least been able to present that insensitivity. But the fact that we have someone that has not truly been able to exhibit that sensitivity and understanding of something that takes place in any community, whether it's, a minority community, whether it's, something that is exhibited in a peaceful town like Charlottesville, to hear him deliver a speech over a written, scripted, delivery format was just disgusting. And I think that those that support what he presents to our country, represents to our country, is something that needs to be reconsidered for those that support him. I think that we have a lot of individuals that don't feel or deliver the message that he supports, and it's unfortunate because it paints a broad brush for those that initially may have supported him, but maybe looking at a different approach to how things should be handled in our country, and it's unfortunate that it took this moment for it to truly be brought to the forefront as opposed to some of the things that we've seen prior to. And I think that it does have a big impact on ancillary items like the Colin Kaepernick situation. Some of the things that he's been doing has been brushed under the rug as just a sports event, but events like this kind of circles the wagons on everything. And we all need to take a look at what we're doing to support a lot of things that we want to bring forth in our communities, but also shine a light on the things that our POTUS is doing that just is not the right approach for what we claim our country is supposed to stand for.
I can dig it, man. I'm sitting here listening to you talk, and I can't dispute a word you said, man. I think you may have just had the mic drop moment of the night. So.
Well, I'll tell you what, like MJ, I mean, the thing about it is we've had conversations multiple times before about things that had nothing to do with this. And I mean, you and I go back a long way. But when I hit you up a couple of weeks ago and I talked about, the historical impact as far as, how these things are making an effect on the country and the social issues that we have, I have a different perspective about this because I'm a history and a poli-sci, a history major with a poli-sci minor. So I understand where the historical impact impacts the political realm. And I think you just spoke briefly to the fact of what the Declaration was truly drafted upon. It wasn't drafted truly in the sake of the spirit of the words that those individuals drafted that piece of paper on. It truly wasn't drafted with that in mind. It was more or less drafted upon the break from the UK as a union and those individuals that felt that the U.S., that wasn't really considered the U.S. at that point, was meant to, for lack of other words, delegate to the parties that were going to lead the country into what they hoped it would be.
Right.
But if you think about it, those individuals took the country over through acts of violence. with the support of other countries. And I mean, this goes, the European approach exists in how they took over territories. This includes North America, South America, Africa, India. I mean, this isn't, Australia. This isn't new. This is just something that is being brought back to the forefront because of what we're seeing today.
Right.
And the fight that we see socially is still being presented to us as a smackdown. No, this is how we're going to approach, how we're going to handle, controlling the individuals who do not have the goal, who do not have the money, with regards to those who do have the power and the money.
Right.
And that's ultimately what it comes down to. I mean, this is no different. It's just the fight, and we gain some ground, and until we can position ourselves to be able to control our communities, our money, our power, and positively impact our communities, we're still going to have these struggles. So, I support what, the Michael Bennett's, of the world's do, because not only is he supporting the Colin Kaepernick, but he's actually going out there and performing activities in the community to help support what we're really trying to do.
Right.
So, I guess the backdrop to my message is, if we can go out there and do what we can do in the communities, let's go out there and do it. Let's not be discouraged by these acts of this weekend. Let's go out there and encourage those that we love and that we want to see develop in our communities, and hopefully it'll turn the tide in the sense where now we could put people in positions where now we may have a couple of minority owners of sports teams outside of the NBA. Let's get into Major League Baseball. Let's get into the NFL, and now we can have some bigger impact on that.
Let me stop you there, because I'm glad you made that point. But one thing that I will add before I let you go is that a lot of the issues that we have, we can fix ourselves if we just stuck together. And we don't,
Agreed.
and we don't stick together, and we're going to talk a little bit more about that in the next segment when we get into Colin Kaepernick. But, we simply don't stick together when, NBA free agency just passed 2 months ago. And I think it was a number close to like $500 million that was given out to these young players. If you think back to last year or the year before, whenever it was, when Kenny Smith suggested that all of the NBA take 10% of their earnings and put it back in the neighborhood in the name of black unity, what we may end up having in a few years. But a lot of these young guys, and I don't want to go too far on this, we can talk about this in the next segment. I'll just say this piece before I wrap it up. But a lot of these young guys aren't going to do it because their agents will advise them against it, because they're worried about that next contract if they end up in a negative light. And that's where you see somebody like Colin Kaepernick is the poster child for that kind of message. So I appreciate you calling in, T. Hunt.
Definitely.
The door is always open for you to call back. So we appreciate your support, brother. I mean that a lot.
All right, man. Good listening to you, bro. Take it easy.
Talk to you soon. And how Esteban Marcus J, live from the Den, Legacy Internet Radio. I'm glad he made some of the points that he made. I want to kind of talk a little bit now. We talked about the president and his response, Tamika. I want your thoughts on the fact that the president may have actually incited a lot of this kind of rhetoric that you're seeing now, where there are some folks who believe that the president of the United States, Donald John Trump, is the champion for this kind of alt-right behavior. You have a lot of folks who were out there with Make America Great Again hats and things of that sort. They rock with this dude. And his response or lack thereof in the immediate aftermath of this young woman dying and this situation occurring would seem to speak to the fact that he was trying to do a balancing act by saying, yes, we denounced the behavior, but he never once denounced the ideology. And he also made a point of putting out there that both sides have some issues here. You have a lot of us who disagree with that. So anyway, the question is your thoughts on the president being a part of the reason why a lot of these people are riled up now to even be out there?
Well, his slogan that he chose to run on alone is a keen sign to him activating this base. The base never went away. People fail to realize, and people don't want to acknowledge that this is still alive because they say it happened so long ago. But you're thinking, 50s, 60s. Selma was 1963.
63, I believe.
Yeah, so 1963, you're talking to our parents and our grandparents. And so this base that's following him with Make America Great Again are our parents who were adults when Reagan was president, and definitely our grandparents. And they miss the good old days when they were in charge, when we would cross the street, when we saw them, we wouldn't make eye contact. They could pretty much say dance, and we say how fast. So those people never went away. Congress had to pass all these laws to try to squish them down as much as they could, but they could never really get rid of them. Stuff is passed on generation to generation, stories, outfits. These Klan costumes are not new. The concepts are not new, but it's now people are seeing it. It's one thing to see it happen back in the 60s on TV. It's another thing to see it in 2017 on TV still. I think that he spoke very purposefully on his trail, and he knew who he was directing his speech to, and those people knew and received the message that he was giving.
I would agree, and I'll add before I turn it over to Tony. You got to really think about the level of hatred you must have in your spirit if you're 20 years old and you're going to take a car and plow it into people protesting the Ku Klux Klan. Like, really, really think about that for a second. You're 20 years old. You're 20. At 43 years old, I'm old enough to have a 20-year-old child.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? I could have a child that age. So I have a little bit of an insight to what a 20-year-old is like. And you're still very young. Right. And you haven't graduated beyond being stupid yet. Right. You know what I mean? Like, when you're in your teens, you think you're really smart, but you really are at the height of kind of being stupid. Like, you don't not be stupid no more until you in your mid 30s. And then when you realize that you were stupid, then you start getting smart. It's like, I really was stupid. So he's still stupid. Yeah. He's still stupid. I'm clowning a little bit, but you understand if I remove that word and you insert your own more positive word, you understand the concept I'm trying to speak to. 20 years old and you have so much hate in your heart that you take a car and you run a crowd of people down who are protesting the Ku Klux Klan. Think about that. That, to me, while I mentioned earlier that I wasn't saddened by these things because I don't expect any more from these people than what we saw, when I really thought about that, I don't want to say it scared me because I don't walk around fearful, but it did put me on edge to the fact that these are the people who we go to school with. These are the people who we go to work with, because these people have jobs that they went back to today. Right. They went back to work today, and I really, honestly, I could not possibly care less that these people were not from Charlottesville. I need them to stop putting the narrative out. These were not the people of Charlottesville. They were bussed in. I don't care.
Somewhere.
They came from somewhere. They came from somewhere because the guy, there's this one guy who you can see him screaming and he's got this vein popping in his head and all this kind of stuff, and his face went viral, and he didn't like that it went viral, so he spoke out about it and said that he's not a racist or a bigot, he just believes in white supremacy. Yes. Well, yeah, exactly. He came from Reno, Nevada to be there. Reno, Nevada. He caught a red eye to get there. And the kid in the car, he came from Ohio. But it's the ideology, and it goes beyond the borders of Virginia and Charlottesville. And so it doesn't matter that these people were not from there. Could not care less. Tony, jump in here. What's your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I think that a lot of, Trump supporters are older people. A lot of the, the alt-rights and the white supremacists, though, are young guys. And while it is taught, from generation to generation, there are a lot of young guys who need something to believe in, and they need something to belong to. One thing that I can say about black people is it don't matter what happens in the streets, when we need to come together, we come together.
Right.
White people don't do that.
Yeah.
They don't do that. Not for you could see for something bad,
Yeah.
but for the most part, it's got to be something extreme or stuff that nobody cares about, I don't know, 4-leaf clovers are dying. Just something that's like there's more stuff. I'm tired of seeing ASPCA commercials on TV, there's hungry children, in downtown Richmond, the priorities. But a lot of it is those young guys that they need something to belong to. They need something that makes them feel like a man, like they're in charge. And a lot of them are afraid of black people. And,
Yeah.
it's really, really sad. And you look at since 2008, we've seen all the memes. We got a black president. White people, y'all better watch it.
Yeah.
We got a black president.
Yeah.
So they've been watching that man, I can't wait until 2016 is over.
Yeah.
You went from
Right.
one extreme to having a black president to having a guy who does not disavow white supremacy.
Right. And it's this is what this is our moment. We've been waiting for this. And when
Right.
he came out the woodworks,
Yeah.
But the
cool
irony,
again.
the irony with that, and you're right, and I agree with you. But the irony with that, they've always had presidents like that.
Right.
true.
You know what I'm
Right.
saying? There's always been presidents like that, and it's crazy to me because I remember the pride that I felt, Tamika, with Barack Obama's election. I think we all felt a level of pride. There were even white people who felt a large amount of pride because I think at one point we all was like, oh shit, America actually did that joint.
Right.
You know what I mean? Tupac has a song, "We Ain't Ready to See a Black President." He says that on Changes. I didn't agree with when he said that, but it spoke to the despair that many of us feel like America ain't gonna do that.
Right.
America ain't gonna elect a black president. And when they did it, I think that a lot of these alt-right and these conservatives was like, oh shit. Just like we said, oh shit, they said, oh
It's
shit
like,
too.
The other way around.
Yeah, they
he
said
really
it.
won.
They really did it, and they convinced themselves of him being a lot of what he really was not. And we don't need to get into that, but they convinced themselves of this. So anyway, Ain't No How Stable, Marcus J. live from the Den, Legacy Internet Radio, 804-402-2893, Tamika. On September 16th, there are talks of a very similar rally being brought to Richmond, Virginia, which is where we are right now, the capital of Virginia, as well as the capital of the Confederacy. Last night on the 11 o'clock news, you saw people out on Monument Avenue, which is where they plan on having this rally on September 16th. You saw people out there, for lack of a better term, they was out there wilding, y'all.
Yeah.
Climbing the statues and monuments and just making spectacles of themselves. And I really don't get what the point was, but the point that I'm bringing up to this piece of the discussion is that they come into Richmond. Or at least they're trying to come to Richmond. What's your thoughts?
They can try. If people don't realize Monument Avenue has $1 million properties. So if nothing else, if people don't disagree with the ideology, the people that live on Monument Ave, because this is a residential district, the people that live there and that own that property, they're not getting ready to see that happen. Nobody wants to clean up their front yard after it looks like what happened in Charlottesville. So I think on that point alone, it's going to be difficult for it to be held there. Not saying they won't be successful in trying to get it someplace else. This is the cream of the crop. This is the capital of the Confederacy. How could you not hold one of these rallies here? But as far as it happening at Robert E. Lee on Monument Ave, it's interesting to see how that's going to go. From what I've done and from what I've heard, Mayor Stoney says that the permit has not been approved yet. It's up to the state to approve the permit. On the website of the Virginia Flaggers, which is a group that is participating and helping to host this event, they're saying that the permit has been approved and that the rally will go on at this monument. So we'll see if it really happens, if it doesn't happen. Don't be surprised if it does. We just need to be prepared to how we're going to counteract it. You know, what's the plan? What are you going to do? How are you going to do this, Marcus J? What do you plan on?
You asking me personally?
I'm asking you personally.
Oh, I'm not going to be out there.
Well, no, not even being out there, but what are you going to do to try to keep this from even coming to RVA?
Well, I mean, this is what we do. This is our ministry. Here at Legacy Internet Radio, we educate and we empower. Yeah. So this is my lane. You know, and I think that there's enough work and enough room for everybody to figure out what their lane is and do their part, you know. And for those folks who do nothing, then they just do nothing. That's on them, right. And they have to, you know, they have to reconcile that with themselves, and if they're praying people with their gods. But you know, I'm very comfortable with what my lane is, right? You know, and my lane is a lane of education and empowerment, and making sure that folks who listen and support and follow me and us, you know, you have the information that you need. Now, what are you going to do? Because Tupac once said that, you know, I may not be the one, but I certainly will spark the mind of the one, you know, right, and that's right. You know, I've always loved that quote because I've always felt like that was what my lane was as well. So that's what I'm going to do. Yeah. You know, that's what I'm going to do. And I like that question. It's a fair question. One of my radio mentors, Black Eagle Joe Madison, he always asks, what are you going to do about it? That's the question. What are you going to do about it? You know, and if you call up his show and you know, are asked, what are you going to do about it? And you don't have an answer, then, you know, people know how Joe do. It ain't going to be a good ride for you because he's going to give you the business. Yeah. And I think that you deserve the business, you know, especially when you know what show you're calling. You know, I mean, right. if you want to call up a show that screens calls, or if you want to call up bubblegum shows or cakewalk shows, then by all means do what you got to do. But if you want to call up a show that's built around empowerment and about being about it, then you better be about it when you call. If not, then you're going to get it. 804-402-2893 if you want to be a part of tonight's show and the discussion. And, you know, I'll just kind of put a bow on this piece of the conversation. We're going to take a break and we're going to get to a couple other stuff. I'm sure that some of this will bleed into it, but I think we've kind of said a lot on this, and I want to move on a little bit here at the end. But, you know, Richmond is, in fact, the capital of the Confederacy. You know, I remember a few years ago, I've been in Richmond for 25 years. My 25th anniversary of being in Richmond was this past Friday, August 11th, 1992 is when I first came to Richmond. And I was 18, so I spent most of my life here, even though I'm Jersey through and through. I was in Jersey this weekend. I was in my old haunts in Jersey this weekend. Remind me offline to tell y'all a story about what happened to me Saturday night. I'm not going to tell that one on the air. That's going to be exclusively for the crew. But this is my home, Richmond. I live here. And if I didn't love it, I wouldn't be still here. And one thing that I will never get comfortable with is seeing Confederate flags. I will never get comfortable with seeing that. I remember when I was in college, we did a TV show called The VUU Connection. And it was a television show that was filmed in the same studio that we filmed Legacy TV in. Exact same room. Remember we did Legacy TV, and I had a deja vu moment because I remember producing TV in that room in the mid-'90s. And I remember a show that we did. I never, ever forgot it. We were talking about the Confederate flag. And I'm probably 19 or 20 at the time. And I remember just being incensed by it. Being incensed by the existence of the Confederate flag. And I just, in my mind, in my northern mind, my, you know, concrete jungle hood in New Jersey mind, could not understand how people would allow you to fly the Confederate flag, because I just figured that it was like a swastika or something. Like, people had this figured out. Like, you know that that's wrong, right? You're not going to check these people? You're not going to check these people. You're not going to tell those people to put them flags away? And it took me years of living in this state to understand that these people are so sincere about how they feel that's heritage that they have twisted it in their mind that that heritage has nothing to do with what it had to do with, and that was the enslavement of human beings. When we have a man on television just a week ago here in Richmond, Virginia, who had tears in his eyes and fire in his belly and passionately spoke of how his family and ancestors fought under Robert E. Lee. And I'm thinking, how many people who fought against Robert E. Lee had to die so that you guys could get what you wanted? Now, you lost the war, but this is what he was fighting for. And for any white person who flies a Confederate flag to look me in the eye and say slavery is over, get over it, I say to you, my friend, fuck your flag. And you know, I have Step with Marcus J. Live from the den, Legacy Internet Radio. Taking a break, come back. We're going to talk about Colin Kaepernick, Marshawn Lynch, and Ezekiel Elliott, National Football League. I got couch coach, attorney Tamika, and my sister Tony. Be back in a few, y'all. Stay with us.
What's up, y'all? This is your man K-Dub, and when I'm down on 285 down in Atlanta, GA, maybe on I-64 in Newport News, Virginia, or maybe I'm in Jersey City catching that light rail headed downtown to go into NYC, I'm always plugged in to Legacy Internet Radio, listening to Ain't No Half Stepping with my man Marcus J. Check it out, y'all. Peace.
What up, everybody? It's your girl, Jody Smith, JMM, Jody Music Mixtape. It's a classic. Get at my dude, Marcus J, on Legacy Internet Radio. Ain't no half stepping. Get your own JMM mixtape. Hit me up. Jody Smith on Facebook, Jody Music, Jody Music, or you can hit me up on Instagram or Twitter. They're both Jody_804. Get at me on YouTube. That's Jody the Artist. Check out some of my footage, some of my videos. You can listen in on SoundCloud, Jody Smith Music, or just give me a call at 1-262-JODY-804. That's 1-262-JODY-804.